For many years, tension has existed between the United Federation of Planets and the Klingon Empire. Any future hostility between our two nations will most likely occur here, in the Arcanus sector. The threat, of course, comes from the Klingons, and no one in the Federation can predict if or when an attack might come. Beyond the neutral zone is the largest Klingon fleet outside of Kronos. If the invasion comes, many of you are the officers and enlisted who will have to face it. You need to have the answers ready before the problems arise, and learn the lessons today, because tomorrow could be too late. Although you already have an interest in broad Klingon doctrine, it's really of little practical importance to you as a field officer or enlisted. What matters most to you is what the Klingons will try to do to you, and what you can do about it. Let us assume that political reasons have led the Klingons to launch an attack, giving us little or no warning of their actions. To face the Klingon threat, the fleet will go to yellow alert and deploy to their primary battle positions. Only a few hours away, a Klingon strike fleet is advancing through the neutral zone. We will now look at the deployment and composition of a Klingon strike fleet. The Klingon strike fleet overall consists of 92 ships, split into 3 elements: the Reconnaissance, the main body, and the reserves. These are codenamed Sniffer, Hound, and Hunter, and these codenames indicate the purpose of each element. The Reconnaissance or Sniffer group travels ahead of the main force and consists of 12 ships. They are generally smaller and lighter vessels, such as the Bird of Prey or D-67. They may also be joined by elements from the raiding fleets, which have been testing our defences and reaction times year-round. The Reconnaissance has 2 main roles: the destruction of key intelligence assets, such as listening posts, sensor telescopes, and communication relays, paralysing our response to the main body's attack. Its secondary role is to scout our fleet and report our positions to their main body. You may encounter Sniffer units up to 72 hours prior to the main attack, as they destroy our intelligence assets. You should endeavour to stop them, but remain cautious. They will strike targets of opportunity and operate in packs of 3. Do not engage them alone. When faced with a superior foe, birds of prey will retreat, but you must not pursue. Forming the core of the Sniffers is a D6 cruiser and 2 D-16 destroyers, and they will engage any pursuers following the birds of prey. When the attack begins in earnest, you will not see the Sniffers. They will remain under cloak unless engaged, and only fight if forced to. Their mission is to infiltrate your area of operations and ascertain the disposition of our heavy cruisers. Ships stationed at the perimeter of the AO should be vigilant. The cloaking device is far from perfect. Look for tachyon residue and gravitic fluctuations. Light is bent around the cloaking device, and this produces a visible distortion. Even if you cannot secure a target lock, you should fire, either employing a phaser sweep or high dispersal torpedo. Both will likely force the cloaked vessel to retreat, hopefully with little intelligence to show for it. The first element of the main body is the vanguard, and it will travel up to 3 hours ahead of the main force. These are the first of the hounds, and they will engage you. The vanguard consists of 20 ships, mixing faster destroyers with light cruisers, such as the D6 and D-16. Their goal is to sweep aside any perimeter patrols, and commit your main force. They will engage all targets, however they will attempt to bypass and flank hard targets. Their goal is not to defeat you, but to commit your heavy cruisers. This is so that the main guard can engage and destroy our heavy cruisers. The main guard totals 30 ships and consists of 12 D-18s, 9 Ktinga battlecruisers, as well as 9 birds of prey for reconnaissance and ambush attacks. It will follow some 3 hours behind the vanguard and strike at the core of our fleet. Much like their namesake, these hounds will chase down their prey relentlessly, and they will not stop until their foe is destroyed. They will not retreat or evade elements opposing them, regardless of their strength, because to the Klingons, minor setbacks are not defeats. They'll try to press forward and will only accept loss of momentum when you force it upon them. With the arrival of the main guard, you are now facing an attack by the main body of the enemy fleet. Already in this early stage of the battle, the enemy forces facing you are considerable. Already the Klingons have matched your numbers, and the reserves have yet to follow. Ideally, your ships should be deployed in a strong, pre-designated defensive position. However, attacks from the vanguard may have disrupted your positioning. If so, then the main guard will attack immediately before you have any time to regroup, primarily employing the birds of prey and D-18s to harass and disperse your ships. If your fleet is in good order, then the battlecruisers will lead the attack and utilize volleys of torpedo fire as they close the gap. Once they reach a range of 20,000 kilometers, the vanguard will redeploy into the formation they will use in their final assault to best exploit our weaknesses. By deploying at the last moment, they give us no time to react. However, they are vulnerable during this maneuver. Once they enter phaser range, the Ktinga will be supported by the D-18. You should expect to engage multiple targets simultaneously. You can also expect attacks on the fringes by cloaked birds of prey. The Klingons' goal is to overwhelm and break your formations, but sharp gunnery and good communication on your part will help you carry the day. No matter what happens, the Klingons will press on and try to weaken you as much as possible, and fix you for the final element of their attack, the reserve, following about 3 hours behind. The reserve is 30 ships strong and contains the elements necessary to bring about a decisive outcome in an engagement and capitalize on success. These roles are split between 3 elements: the combat reserve, assault group, and exploitation force. However, all elements are capable of supporting one another when needed. The combat reserve comprises an additional 10 Ktinga, and we believe that this will soon be supplemented by newer, more advanced vessels based on the L-39. Its task is to ensure a decisive outcome is achieved in the main engagement. The L-39 is the replacement for the D-9 and serves as their new long-range battleship. Using its quad nacelles to achieve higher speeds for longer, it can therefore pursue and hunt down stragglers from the fleet. 3 L-39s combined with 9 D-57s form the exploitation force, and they will chase down any retreating vessels and prevent us from regrouping. as well as infiltrate our positions further in depth. Finally, the assault element consists of 8 D-10 assault cruisers. It is tasked with the capture of space stations and starbases, securing the conquests made by the rest of the strike fleet, and capturing the vital supplies of antimatter and dilithium necessary to continue the advance. However, these elements will not hesitate to engage in open battle if necessary, and both the D-10 and L-39 are formidable vessels, with firepower to match our heavy cruisers. D-10s will prefer to attack strong, static positions where they can fully utilise their heavy disruptors. Now that you understand the composition of the enemy force, you will have some idea of what you need to do to counter it. Of course, this varies depending on the type of ship you are serving aboard and its specific mission, but a good guideline are the 3 S's: Scout, Stop, and Survive. The strength of our response will be dictated by the accuracy of our reconnaissance, and this requires our scouts to be bold and vigilant. But when facing a cloak-equipped force, every commander should be vigilant and observant. If we are successful in our scouting, then we will be better able to stop the Klingon advance and deny them their main objective, the expansion of Klingon territory, by seizing contested worlds on the border. Only by stopping the Klingons can we bring them to the negotiation table. The Klingons will only resort to diplomacy after their military options have been exhausted, and it is your job to do precisely that. However, the most important thing is to survive above all else. The Klingon fleet outnumbers Starfleet by a ratio of 3-1. Even if you repel one strike fleet, there will likely be another following behind. The Klingon Doctrine is built around waging short and violent campaigns to seize territory. They cannot sustain a long war. And so your first and foremost priority is to survive, to preserve your ship and crew. By doing so, you pose a continuous threat to the Klingons and limit their striking ability. For every ship we lose, the Klingons' ability to threaten our territory multiplies. Survival may cost us the battle, but it will win us the war. This principle applies universally. Those of you assigned to stations and starbases will likely face Klingon boarding parties in man-to-man combat. You may have received some tactical training, but Klingon warriors are trained from birth, and they are trained to kill. They will not hesitate, and they will fight to the death. A Klingon fears dishonor more than he fears death. Because he does not fear death, he is a formidable warrior, but he is a poor soldier. A good soldier survives to ensure that he carries out his mission and remains a persistent threat to the enemy. While the Klingon happily greets death, you will fight with every ounce of strength to stay alive, and by doing so, you shall overcome your Klingon adversary. Do not hesitate to trade ground for survival. Klingon warriors may be ruthless and brutal, but their reckless aggression often gets the better of them. Remember your training and keep the enemy at range. Stick by your squad and be prepared to surrender ground when you must. Remember what you have learned today, because our first and foremost weapon is knowledge, and the day may well come when you are called upon to use it, and now you stand well equipped to do so. You know the enemy. You know how he will attack. You know the number and composition of his ships. And you know his objective. What you must do now is stop him.